mentality was to go out and win at any cost. Because I'm going to ridicule you until you get on the same level with me.
Michael Jordan is a basketball icon, but you won't believe some of the horrific things that Jordan has said and done throughout his career. When you first think of Michael Jordan, you think of his stellar basketball career and his competitiveness on and off the court. But never in a million years would you think of Jordan as a horrific person when he isn't playing basketball. And yet, he still has quite a few moments throughout his life that just doesn't show the character that he truly has. Whether it's something being taken out of context or a camera catching him on a bad day, these are 10 moments where Jordan was caught just being plain rude to people. We'll start off with the conversation he had with rapper Chamillionaire. The two of them shared a small talk at some place in the city when the rapper asked him for a selfie. This wasn't anything unusual for Jordan, as people are constantly asking him for autographs and pictures with him, and given the fact that Chamillionaire was such a big fan, it would only make sense. But Jordan didn't exactly give him what he wanted. Instead, the cameras caught him saying things like, "You know what, let me tell you what, you just pay me $15,000 right now for a jersey, and I'll take a picture with you." Now, in his defense, we have no idea what was said between the two people, and maybe there were some nasty things said in private prior to this meetup, but it's definitely a bad look for the ultra-competitive Michael Jordan. Just like the time when he was literally kicked out of a country club. If any of you know anything about Jordan's personal life, it's that he absolutely loves playing golf in his spare time. So one day, he decided to take a trip to a private place called Lagorce Country Club in Miami. Right after he walked into the doors, he chose to get on the fairway and start a game as usual. Jordan actually made it all the way to the 12th hole before he was met by multiple staff members who asked him to change his wardrobe because he wasn't meeting their dress code. Jordan wasn't necessarily upset, but he didn't handle the situation like you'd expect. Instead, he responded pretty arrogantly and refused to switch clothes, so the club took matters into their own hands and banned him from ever coming back. A little while later, Jordan's PR team jumped in to answer some questions about the situation, but all they had to say was, "It's not our loss, I guess it's their loss. MJ is a great golfer and guest." But even though he's a fantastic golfer, his talents will no longer be showcased at the Lagorce Country Club. Now, this country club incident wasn't the only situation that was brought up because of golf. This next moment took place during the year 1992 in the middle of summer. Jordan and his head coach Chuck Daly thought it would be best to head out for a practice round on the golf course. Daly was actually able to win that game by just one shot, a rare loss for the great Michael Jordan. But he wasn't ready to accept his own defeat just yet, and the next morning he chose to take matters into his own hands. One columnist actually reported that Jordan woke up at the crack of dawn just to stand outside Chuck Daly's room. He was pounding and knocking on the door and demanding a rematch, insisting that he wasn't leaving until he was given one. After a while, Daly had enough and gave in to Jordan, and the two went on to play their game. In typical Jordan fashion, he not only won that rematch, but he did it by just one stroke, the exact same way that Daly won the previous match. And of course, winning has come to be expected for Jordan throughout his time in the NBA, but what wasn't expected was when he punched his teammate in the face. That teammate happened to be Steve Kerr, the now head coach of the Golden State Warriors. Kerr opened up about the whole situation a while back, saying that he simply disagreed with Michael and the two began arguing. This whole thing happened during a small scrimmage right at the beginning of training camp, and Kerr didn't back down whatsoever when Jordan first confronted him. This, of course, is what resulted in him getting punched in the face by one of the best to ever do it. Kerr went on to tell the people that he was proud of himself for not backing down, and that it was actually one of the best feelings he'd ever experienced. He also believes that getting punched in the face actually earned him respect, because at first glance, he just looked like that younger guy that always got picked last during a game. After this fight, there was no bad blood between him and Jordan, with the two getting along quite nicely throughout the next few years. This was most notable when Jordan passed the ball to Kerr during the 1997 NBA Finals, and Kerr hit the game-winning shot. But still, punching somebody in the face over a small argument isn't the nicest thing that Jordan could have done. Just like in this next situation. Now, this was more constructive criticism than being flat-out mean, but it still wasn't right to bring these things up in the exact moment that he did. Jordan was in front of tons of people at the time, getting himself prepared to give his Hall of Fame acceptance speech, which is pretty much expected to just be a small thank you to the fans and a remembrance of all the good times. However, Jordan ended up speaking for a lengthy 23 minutes, and during that time, he spared nobody, criticizing everybody from his pro owner, general manager, to his high school coach and teammates. Not to mention the fact that he had some subtle jabs at the actual Hall of Fame itself. Now, his whole speech wasn't all negatives. In fact, he had quite a few grateful things to say throughout his speech. But it was definitely surprising to see him come out swinging like he did, even if it was just joking and banter.
And Jerry Krause was right there, and Jerry's not here. Obviously, I don't know who invited him. I didn't. He said organization wins championships. I said I didn't see organization playing with the flu in Utah.
This next one, you can imagine, was just Jordan joking around, but at first it didn't seem that way. The former Phoenix Suns star forward Charles Barkley would often go head-to-head with Jordan, and they were actually good friends, going golfing together in their spare time and always messing around. But according to one of the Chicago Bulls assistant coaches, Barkley and Jordan went golfing the day before Game 4 of the NBA Finals between the Bulls and Suns. The two of them played an astonishing 48 holes that day, with Jordan gifting Barkley $20,000 diamond earrings at the end of the long session. However, when he was asked about the substantial gift to his friend, Jordan had a sly remark, saying, "He wouldn't come in my way for the rest of the series. $20,000 means nothing to me. Charles thinks we're friends, but I hate that fat elf." While this may seem like a terribly rude and hateful comment, one can only imagine that he was saying this out of the goodness of his heart because they're so close. But Jordan would never be sweet around the media, and this was just what you'd come to expect when he talked about one of his rivals.
You speak that highly of Charles's golf swing.
He can take a game of leisure and relaxation and make it a lot of work.
Although sometimes his teammates become his rivals. See, Michael became ridiculously close friends with a player named Charles Oakley for the Chicago Bulls. He wasn't the best player, but he was a great role player and mentor. The team apparently didn't care about how great of a person he was off the court because he was shipped off in exchange for Bill Cartwright. Bill, in turn, was ridiculed by Jordan the next few weeks, with Jordan nicknaming him Medical Bill. He also purposely overthrew Bill when he tried to pass him the basketball. Luckily, Cartwright ended up winning 3 championships with Chicago, but Jordan never came out and appreciated what Bill brought to the team. Even though he's very competitive, he should have at least admitted the contributions of Cartwright were helpful enough to win a championship. Rodney McReynolds was another teammate on the Bulls who was destined to help Chicago off the bench. However, those hopes of him contributing as a spark plug evaporated very quickly once he met up with Jordan. News broke out that McReynolds was a very competitive person, and that sparked mighty competition between him and Jordan. In every scrimmage that they played on opposite teams, Jordan would pick out Rodney and get all up in his face every chance he got, yelling hurtful and nasty things to the point where Rodney didn't even have the confidence to take jump shots anymore and would simply pass away good looks. Now, I'm all for the competitive nature of basketball, but some players just can't take that level of criticism and hate without crumbling under the pressure. Next up, we have the time that Michael attempted to intimidate and threaten another NBA champion, Robert Parish. He was nicknamed the Chief during the dynasty run that the Boston Celtics had, and was widely appreciated around the league because of his contributions. Well, appreciated by everyone except Jordan, apparently. Parish said that during a game or practice between him and the Bulls, he'd messed a play up and was shocked to see Jordan inches away from him yelling at him. Parish simply said he wasn't enamored with him like other players are, and that he has rings of his own. Jordan then yelled back, "I'm gonna kick your ass," but Parish just said, "No you aren't," and Jordan never tried to get in the way of Robert again. Michael may be a fantastic leader and motivator, but it doesn't make sense to threaten a champion like Robert, who at that point didn't have much left to prove for himself. Jordan ended up making this next guy break down into tears over his comments. Jordan had allegedly made homophobic remarks towards a man named Kwame Brown, yelling other expletives at him right in front of fellow teammates. This whole ordeal resulted in Brown crying in front of everybody. Jordan had tried to push Brown so hard during the early stages of his career that he just couldn't take it anymore, and it stunted his growth as a player more than it helped him flourish. This led to a lot of criticism over Jordan's way of motivating, with some even claiming that he was a tormentor in the locker room. This next incident happened outside the locker room though, when he threw out a few terrible comments towards the shortest player in NBA history, Muggsy Bogues. Now, despite his height, he was still a great player. One game, towards the end of his career, he was going up against Michael Jordan and the Bulls, and the clock was winding down. Jordan was lined up against Bogues, and instead of defending him, he said, "Shoot it, you effing midget." So he did, and sadly enough, he didn't even come close to putting it in. Shortly after that, it was reported that Mugsy told an assistant coach that it really got to him, and his jump shot never recovered afterwards. Lastly, Jordan decided to take his wrath onto a non-NBA player and former North Carolina teammate Buzz Peterson. Peterson invited him over to play cards with some family and friends, but there was to be no money or betting involved, just strictly fun. Jordan started out losing, and he just couldn't let that happen. Apparently, an older woman had just gotten up to head to the restroom when Peterson caught Jordan cheating and trying to glance at her cards. Listen, everybody wants to win, but we all know that cheating is never the answer for anybody, not even the great Michael Jordan. Thank you all so much for watching, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Let us know in the comments below which player we should do next. In the meantime, click the video that appears on your screen to watch some more NBA fights.